Very much, Paige, and I am a Bobcat at heart, so it's good to be back home today. After you spend 3 months in Atlanta every winter, it's good almost to be anywhere other than that. So it really is great to be here, and thank you for having me. And it's always good to be here with people who really, through growing businesses here in this community, make our community go. So I always get charged up and inspired by being around community leaders and business people and others who truly are the backbone of Gilmer County and LJ and East LJ. I want to tell you that I am excited. I'm really excited to share with you today a lot of good news. This legislative session that we just completed 2 weeks ago today, I think will go down as one of the most productive, at least since I was elected Speaker 8 years ago. As your state representative, I'm happy to tell you that we accomplished a number of priorities that I believe will positively impact Gilmer County and the entire state. I want to start literally with the bottom line, the 2019 state budget. That is the one thing that we have to do every session, is pass a balanced budget. And we did that again this year. In some $26 billion of spending, more than half of that goes to education. But there's a lot of details surrounding that spending. But I want to focus with you today for just a few minutes on the big picture. There's 3 things I want you to know and to take away about your state budget. Number 1, we're making major investments in public education. We have, for the first time, eliminated the austerity cuts that have been in place since almost the year 2000 here in Georgia. And we have fully funded for the first time the QBE funding formula. In Gilmer County alone, that will mean an extra $375,000 to this local school system. That's significant money. We also provided every school system in Georgia with additional funds to implement school campus security improvements. For Gilmer County, that will mean approximately $52,000 to bolster the safety of our schools. Because as we have tragically seen, the bad guys are not off limits anywhere. And it's important, I think, that we all feel secure that when we send our kids to school in the morning, that they're going to come back safe in the afternoon. We have committed $361 million in state funding this year toward our teachers' retirement system, the TRS. That's the pension fund that each and every public school teacher has worked for, that we have made a covenant with for years. And we're going to make sure that it remains one of the strongest public teacher retirement funds in the entire nation. Secondly, we are spending less per person adjusted for inflation than we did in 2008. That's 10 years ago. Yes, the total budget has grown, but you know what? So have the number of Georgians. We are now bumping up in that 10-year period to an additional 1.25 million additional Georgians. And so to manage through that growth, I think that we have done a good job. We're meeting the demands of a thriving state, and Georgia is thriving, and Georgia is growing. I'm very proud that as we have grown, we have continued to live within our means and resisted the temptation to grow government unnecessarily. Now, you hear a lot of political rhetoric out there about government spending. I say to you that the ultimate test is those people who loan money to both local and state governments. There's only 8 states in this nation that still have a AAA bond rating for their bonded indebtedness, and Georgia is one of them. And I think that's something that as taxpayers, you can be very, very proud of. And third, but not last, we implemented the first cut to our state income tax in Georgia history this session. Let me say that again, just because it feels good. We cut income taxes in Georgia for the first time in Georgia history. That was, I know there are those that said, well, you didn't cut it enough, and those that say you cut it too much. Well, you know what? All good things start with a journey. And I think we've made a significant step, and that we can continue to responsibly address that issue as we go forward. But that cut will keep more money, or more of your money, where it belongs, in your pocket. All told, it is projected that this income tax cut will save Georgia's citizens more than $5 billion over the next 5 years. For Gilmer County specifically, there are 2 important priorities included in this year's budget, other than what I mentioned regarding QBE and the school safety plan. We appropriated in this year's budget $1.7 million to put a new roof on Gilmer County High School in the state budget. When they told me how much it was going to cost, I told them they must not have had a new roof since I graduated. But we're also using part of that to make significant improvements to the school's heating and air conditioning system. Secondly, and I'm very happy to announce this because this will just be released this week, $1.2 million to help the county make infrastructure improvements to our water system in a 2-phase project. Water is a vital part of our infrastructure. The first phase of that funding will consist of installing a new water main on Yukon Road to the Gilmer-Pickens line and an interconnection with the Pickens County water system. In the second phase, a $300,000 water storage tank will be constructed and pump station upgrades will be implemented. I know we have some of the members of that board here today, and I want to commend them for helping my office work to obtain that funding, and I think that's going to mean a great deal to the future of this county. In addition to providing redundancy for both Pickens and Gilmer water systems, this project will provide water to new customers and access to potential development sites. And it will also help provide fire protection for the southeast portion of Gilmer County. I could stop right there and say that's reason enough to say we did good work, but there's more. Let me talk with you very briefly about the priorities of one of the projects that was very near and dear to my heart. You know, as I look around at the growth in jobs in Georgia over the past 8 or 9 years, and we've grown added about 700,000 new jobs in the private sector. We're the envy of every other state in the nation in that regard. It occurred to me that we weren't doing enough to spread that growth out to every corner of the state, that too much of that was in metro Atlanta and other metro areas and not enough in rural Georgia. So last session, in the 2017 session, we formed a House Rural Development Council. That council was composed of leaders of the House of Representatives who met throughout last year in rural communities to hear about the challenges hindering economic growth and prosperity. When we formed that council, I gave them one specific charge: find ways to help private business create jobs and grow the economies of our rural communities. And you can't have one hearing in Atlanta. And they didn't. They met all over the state: Tifton, Thomasville, Bainbridge, Metter, Toccoa, LJ, and Dalton. Met all over the state all year long, over 70 hours of public hearings. And from their recommendations, we identified 5 legislative packages to meet the needs of rural communities in Georgia. Rather than just listing those packages, I want to focus on 2 of them. First, we implemented a health care reform package that will improve access to affordable health care in rural Georgia. Sponsored by my friend Representative Rick Jaspers of Jasper, this bill codifies the regulatory framework for micro-hospitals. Our Piedmont Mountainside facility right here in LJ has truly become a model for the rest of the state. The economics of healthcare make it impractical and frankly too expensive for every community to have and support a 40 or 50 or 60 bed hospital. As people who believe in free enterprise, you know it isn't responsible to maintain a hospital that loses money every single day and doesn't have enough demand for services. What we've arrived at, however, is a model that keeps 24/7 acute care in communities with easy access to larger regional hospitals when needed. These micro-hospitals will give us the means to keep better quality health care available throughout the state. Secondly, we've got our rural broadband initiative. Thanks to a strong partnership with Senator Steve Gooch, we saw the passage of a package designed to make it easier for small utilities to implement high-speed broadband internet in Georgia's rural communities. This legislation also establishes a broadband ready community designation as a way for our rural communities to attract new businesses across the state. And I want to tell you something. I was honored to be invited a few weeks ago to the White House when President Trump rolled out his infrastructure package. And 2 things were very, very significant about that meeting. One, he is committed to rural America. And secondly, he is committed to high-speed broadband all over the country. And I commend him for that. As we look forward to the 2019 legislative session, the House Rural Development Council will continue their work, and they'll continue their work through the end of this year. In fact, they begin their 2018 meetings next month in Blue Ridge. So we'll be getting some information to Paige, and I hope many of you will be able to come up and visit with that group when they come up to discuss some of the issues facing rural Georgia. I'm very proud of what this group has accomplished, and I will be excited to receive their next round of recommendations at the end of this year. Now, that's a lot of ground covered, and I know you all need to get back to work. So with that, let me stop here and say simply thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to represent you. I tell people all the time, I represent the greatest part of Georgia. And I love going all over the state, as my job requires that I do, and have people tell me that they've been to LJ for the weekend, or they've been to Blue Ridge for the weekend. That gives you a great sense of pride. Some of my House members like to tell me that they've been up here and they've spent money. I said, that's a pretty good way to get a bill passed, so keep it up. Thank you very much for all that you do to help me. Many of you I leaned on many issues during the session, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you for trusting me to keep your interest at heart and to work every day to keep this community one of the best places to live, work, and raise a family in Georgia. So thank you very much. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the state of Georgia.